different areas in town, how the children, instead of throwing things in garbages, they throw everything on the ground, wrappers, McDonald's wrappers in certain areas of town. And this is beautiful because it gives the children the opportunity to actually go out, clean things up, pick things up, and it puts in their mind that, you know, throwing things on the ground and throwing things in the water or on the banks of the river is definitely wrong. And there were a bunch of young students there. And again, thank you to the coalition for doing this twice a year. Maybe that's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First, let me say, Pam, I'm moving this way because the light's in my eye. No, you're only if I'm in your space. Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's coming from your office. Oh, that's better. There you go. All right, just say okay. Like the Deputy Mayor said, we both attended the Shark River Hills Property Owners Association meeting, and with the department heads, and we gave a State of Neptune and presentation, and
can't quite hear you. It's not microphone.
We attended Shark River Hills Property Owners Association meeting, and with our department heads, and we gave a State of Neptune address, and it was really bad rain, and I think it was a nice crowd in spite of the rain. I didn't expect to see that many people there, but it was a good crowd, and we gave out information and took questions. I think it was a good event. And Robert, I missed your event. I attended the conference of mayors in Atlantic City, and learned a number of things about a number of topics that would be helpful with Neptune. And out of that meeting, I was part of a group that will be meeting with some senators that set up to meet with some gubernatorial candidates, and I'll get an opportunity to express the needs of Neptune and the things that the next governor should make sure that he can address and cover. There will be a number of other elected officials there that will do that. I look forward to that. I'll report on that later. I do have a check for you, Robert. I don't have it today for the event. Okay. I congratulate President Benelli and the board members that won the election. In January 1st, in the mayor's address, I stated that there needs to be, and I will pursue, a better relationship with the Board of Ed with respect to the children of Neptune. We have a responsibility, as well as they do, to help our children, and we want to step forward with that. So I look forward to working with you guys on that. Wesley Lake, here again, I was in Atlantic City at the time, so I missed that Wesley Lake cleanup. But you know, Wesley Lake has, there's no way to stop people from throwing things in there. You know, you can go after the lake, you can jump in if you want. I mean, it's just that open. So things get thrown in there all the time, and that cleanup really helps out. That helps out. The Friends of Wesley Lake come out and they do that every year, and you'd be amazed at the kind of things they pull out of that lake. But those efforts are really much appreciated by the commission. That being said, I have a statement with regard to the fire in Ocean Grove. People have been asking me about when will the prosecutor's office make a report, and hopefully this will help out with that. The investigation remains open. However, at this time, the investigation report indicates that through the use of cognitive experiments, fire department, police data, and potentially related incendiary incidents in the community, photographs, videos, witness statements, and fire scene examination itself, it is that either an arsonist deliberately set fire or a vagrant accidentally set the fire to the Warrington Hotel in a location where fire should not otherwise be present. The investigation remains open. The Detective Bureau deemed it to be an undetermined incendiary fire. Anyone with information regarding this incident is encouraged to contact Neptune Township Police Department Detective Bureau. That being said, we'll go to the next part of the meeting, and that is public comments on resolutions only. The public gets an opportunity one time to the microphone for 5 minutes on resolutions on this agenda. Anyone have comments on resolutions on the agenda? Mr. Dollar, I'll start from this side.
Mike Bell, 305 Cliffwood Drive. Is it on? Light's on. I don't have a problem being heard, so it's not a big deal.
No, hold on, please.
Is the mic on?
Okay, go.
Press the button.
There you go.
Hope Springs Eternal.
Mike Collins, 305 Cliffwood Drive.
Mr. Bell, may I please have a seat so I can start your 5 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you.
17225, point of financial advisor. Can you elaborate on that? Is it, not in my memory, has the town ever had a financial advisor, and what precipitated this action?
Beth?
Sure. We've had a financial advisor every year, but when we issue bonds, yes, we've had a financial advisor every year. When we issue bonds, we have to appoint them specifically through an RFP process because they earn more than the $1,500 or so they typically earn in a year, providing the support for us. The last time that we had to do a resolution to appoint a financial advisor was in 2013, and prior to that it was 2010.
You're speaking about bond counsel or financial advisor?
Financial advisor who works with bond counsel and myself for an issuance of long-term bonds.
This is another name for bond counsel?
No.
This is a separate position.
This is a financial advisor who works with the bond counsel and myself in issuing long-term debt. They help us prepare the official statement.
I don't, between 2004 and 2006, I don't ever remember voting for an appointment of a financial
Well, I'd
advisor.
have to go back and look and see if we issued long-term bonds between 2004 and 2006. If we did, we would have had a financial advisor. If we did not, we would not have needed this.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. In the pink, yes.
Stephanie Sayers from Southbridge Side. My first question, it has to do with resolution 17-228. And it's the, in connection with the Lake Alberta basin drainage. Now you have here, a total authorized appropriation of $107,000 for engineering services for the Lake Alberta drainage project. How much is the project costing altogether?
I don't have that number in front of me. This $107,250 is just for the engineering consultant that is working on the design and the permitting for the project. I can certainly get you that number. I don't have that right here on the dais this evening. But that is a FEMA-funded project, hazard mitigation project. So there are FEMA grant funds involved as well as municipal funds. But I can get you that information.
Thank you. How much grant money was did FEMA?
Again, I don't have those exact numbers, Stephanie, but I will get them to you.
It would be for 75% of the total cost.
Okay. And my other question is, on resolution 17-229, It has to do with Shark River Island flood mitigation project, and we all know now that South Concourse already has the bulkhead put in. And here, you're asking, I guess, for additional appropriations because there were modifications to that design. And some of the modifications are a relocation of the bulkhead. And due to the New Jersey DEP comments, and I was wondering, what were those comments by the DEP?
I mean, if you read in here, it's all about, number one, where the location and potential relocation of the bulkhead was, how it was going to be, set along the water line. So that's some of the costs associated there in the engineering.
Well, I'm not even really asking about the cost on that one. I just want to know what comments the DEP made that created the need to relocate the bulkhead.
I don't have that information sitting here in front of me, but again, I will get that for you.
Some of it does relate to the tide valve installation, and apparently where the tide valve was coming out, the water was too shallow to support it, so they're allowing a sort of a silt removal and then a stabilization base in front of the bulkhead below that to keep the depth of the water below the tide valve sufficient so the tide valve could work. So that's a significant portion of it. But I don't know all the comments.
Okay. And the $142,000 appropriated for that is just for engineering services. Okay. So that's not even the cost of.
No, the project's over $1 million.
Okay. And how big was that project? I mean, it doesn't match what you're planning to do on South Riverside.
Well, I believe if you look at, there actually were two portions of this project, one on South Concourse, one on West Concourse. There were bulkheads put in two locations and tide valves put in two locations.
It also included a complete replacement of the drainage system with drainage pipes that are far larger than what had been there before, and elevating the roadway to a higher level so it wouldn't flood on a monthly basis. So that was also included in this. The other project is a different project.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Juanito.
First thing has nothing to do with the resolution, but it has to do with the fact that probably most everybody in this room doesn't realize today is the celebration of VE Day, the day that Karl Dönitz signed the papers surrendering Germany to the Allies. I think it's a very important day in our it's a very important day. We lost over 600,000 dead Americans, 1,300,000 casualties total. So I think wasn't more than say thank you. I'm just curious about the 225, the financial advisor, and there's two kinds of financial advisors that I'm aware of. One is fee-based, and the other one is commission-based. I don't see this as a commission-based thing, but there's no indication of what the remuneration will be. Will it be hourly? Will it be daily? Will it be?
It's fee-based. It's $9,500 for a bond issuance up to, I want to say $15 million, which describes ours. Ours will be below $15 million. And then there's an additional hourly rate for use of their consultants in the preparation of the official statement and in marketing our bonds.
Okay, and you review these items as they come in for vouchers?
Well, they're approved now. There's an hourly rate. The official statement, it's $9,500 for any bond issuance up to $15 million, flat fee. They've always provided our continuing disclosure at an hourly rate, which is average between $1,500 and $2,000 a year. The preparation of the official statement, generally 15 to 20 hours. The rates vary between $95 an hour to $200 an hour or $205 an hour, depending on who's involved in which level of preparation.
There's an amount somewhere, right? It's not here. And on 231, I hope, this doesn't mean that my street's gonna be torn up again. I was without a street for almost 2 years. I mean, it was a street, which most couldn't drive on.
Now, your street won't be torn up again, Mr.
Whoa, all right. It was no fun, I'll tell you that.
Ms. Jones.
Hi, Janelle Jones, 807 Stanford Drive, Neptune. In reference to Mr. Bonino's comment, would you kindly elaborate on Resolution 17231? I'm president of the Gables Residents Association, and I need to know what change is being made and possible impact on the residents.
These were actually change orders recommended. The contractor provided requested changes to our consulting engineer, which was then reviewed by our township engineer. I don't have the specifics in front of me as to exactly what the change was. One, actually, as you notice, the one in here, change order number 2, discusses a net decrease in the cost of the project. So there were less of a scope of improvements than originally had been approved in the contract. So reduced the final amount of the contract down to $950,746.65. There was a, back in February, there was a change order that increased the contract for other work, additional work initially, and then this change order reduced the scope of the work. So this is a final balance on the project that shows that the project is now complete.
Okay, and so you're not going to be doing, what is the timetable with the work commencing, and how long do you foresee the project being?
The phase 4 project, these are as-built quantities, so
Okay.
these are as a closeout of the project.
I see, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dorothy.
Dorothy North, pretty excited there. This is resolution 17-227. I see that this is the fence tax that's being enforced here, and since the penalties are so high, I'm trying to find out where I can find out where the easements, the township easements exist on my property. I asked somebody, I think last time, when we referred to a map. I looked on a map, it wasn't there. Where do I find where the easements are so that I can stay within the law and not have to pay these heavy penalties?
Do you have a survey of your property?
I don't think so.
Well, a survey would show the easements, or the tax map. If you go down to the tax assessor's office, tax map should show.
I looked at the tax map and I don't see anything about easements on the tax map.
Maybe you don't have any, I don't know.
My understanding is that there's an automatic easement on people's, the edge of people's property in case the town wants to put a sidewalk there.
That's right of way, not easement.
So that,
The right of way wouldn't necessarily show.
and that's not an easement.
No.
I can't be punished for building something.
Well, you
on the
still
edge of
can't
my
build. You
property.
still can't build something on the right of way because the right of way allows the town to use it.
So in a sense, it's the same as an easement.
Well, it has the same effect because you can't build on a municipal right of way. I'm going to say, I still think the right of way might show up on the tax map and on your survey. If you have a survey.
The survey is the only place that I can find that. It doesn't exist at the township level, and yet your penalties for not recognizing it are very high.
I'd have to,
You need
know,
better notice than that.
I'd have to look at the tax map for your property to really make that assessment. I mean, or you could get an attorney to do it.
How about if you do it? I mean, you're the township attorney,
You want me
right?
to come in and look at your tax map? I'll do it.
How much?
I don't, the only tax says nothing about easements or rights of way.
I have to
How
tell-
do people stay within the law?
I'm telling you how. I mean, you have a survey or you have the tax map, but we don't seem to be having problems with anyone else, Dorothy. I will go down there and check your tax map. When I
The
come in,
tax map that I have.
well, the tax map the town has of your property. I don't know what you have.
Well, if you would point out some time when you don't have anything else to do, call me and.
I'll actually combine it with something else. I'll be coming in from municipal court. I'll actually
I'll buy
combine
your
you.
lunch.
I'll combine, no, let's don't.
I'll buy your lunch.
Don't do that. And I'll actually combine your thing with something else, okay?
Thank you.
Jack?
Thank you, Mayor. Jack Burton, 94 and a half Beckett Avenue, Ocean Grove. I'm not gonna use 5 minutes, but it would be nice if you started your egg timer, you know, from the time I start talking, not when I get up. You cut me off, you know, if I practice for 5 minutes and then you cut me off 3 seconds early, it's not right.
Wasting
But-
time.
What?
You wasting time.
I know, but I only need a little bit. Just, resolution 221, potential litigation, Monmouth County prosecutor's investigation on Ocean Road fire. Did you receive a letter of intent to sue the town? Somebody?
We don't have to, 221.
It's on your website this afternoon, explaining why you were going into closed session. Did you, obviously, you were into closed session, and when you came out, you discussed Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. So you obviously discussed litigation as, well, no, you didn't discuss.
No, what we
litigation.
discussed was whether or not the prosecutor's office had concluded their investigation. And our conclusion was what the mayor read, that it's an ongoing investigation, but from what they've seen so far, it was probably caused by an arsonist or a vagabond.
And so my only question was, did you receive a letter of intent of anyone intending to sue the town? No. No, okay, thank you.
Anyone else on resolutions only? Seeing none, we close that portion of the meeting. Next ordinance, leave ordinance, the public hearing, with the public hearing, the public will be permitted one visit to the microphone with a limit of 5 minutes.
Ordinance number 17-12 is an ordinance to amend Volume 1, Chapter 7 of the Code of the Township of Neptune by adding a resident handicap on-street parking zone on Ocean Avenue and removing a handicap parking zone on Surf Avenue. This is the final reading. The explanatory statement is this ordinance authorizes a resident handicapped on-street parking zone in front of 1 Ocean Avenue and the removal of an existing handicapped parking zone in front of 1 Surf Avenue.
Anyone have comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, do I have an offer?
I'll offer.
Offered by Committeewoman Rizzo, second.
I'll second.
Second by Committeeman Lane, overruled.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Bradley?
Yes.
Ordinance number 17-13 is an ordinance authorizing deed of easement and right-of-way agreement for sewer line purposes with New York Concourse LLC and Route 35, Inc., lots 2 through 14, blocks 5,605 on the tax map of the Township of Neptune. This is the first reading. The explanatory statement is as follows. This ordinance authorizes the township to accept an easement and right-of-way for the purpose of a sanitary sewer line in connection with the major plan approval granted to the Headliner nightclub.
First reading, do I have an offer?
I'll offer.
Offered by Committeeman Lane, second.
I'll second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Williams, call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Bradley?
Yes.
Ordinance number 17-14 14 is a bond ordinance providing for Shark River bulkhead improvements by and in the Township of Neptune and the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, appropriating $1,200,000, therefore inclusive of a $835,529.25 FEMA grant, and authorizing the issuance of $346,245.75 in bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. This is the first reading. Please note that this is just to introduce the bond and not the project. The explanatory statement is as follows. This ordinance authorizes an appropriation of $1,200,000 for the Shark River bulkhead construction and related improvements. The appropriation includes a FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant in the amount of $835,529.25.
First reading, do I have an offer?
Offer.
Offered by Committeeman Lane, second.
Second.
Second by Committeewoman Rizzo, call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yep.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Brantley?
Yes.
Ordinance number 17-15 is an,
Are you able to make a comment on this? At the end of the first?
these are introductions.
This is first reading. Second reading, you can.
Ms. Howard?
Or public session at the end.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Ms. Howard?
I'm sorry.
I'd like ordinance number 17-15 tabled for this evening due to the fact that we have a lot of unanswered questions on issues that came up. So I'd like this tabled until the committee can meet and have further discussion.
Okay, offered by Mr. Williams, seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Lane. Okay, I'll call the roll. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
This is to table it, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Brantley?
Like the Deputy Mayor said, there are some questions that when we pass this, we want to make sure that we can do a good job with the questionable parts of this ordinance. We want to make it tight so that it can work for the residents of Neptune. So I say yes.
Okay, for the record, ordinance number 17-15 has been tabled. The public hearings on ordinance 17-13, 17-14 will be held on Monday, May 22nd. We will now proceed to our resolutions. Resolution 17-222 through and including resolution 17-235 are on our consent agenda. Can someone please make an offer?
I'll offer.
Offered by Deputy Mayor Williams, second.
Second.
Second by Committeewoman Rizzo, call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Brantley?
Yes.
Resolution number 17-236, extend an offer of employment for the position of driver in the Department of Public Works.
Offer.
I'll offer.
Second. Offered by Deputy Mayor Williams, second by Committeeman Lane, call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Brantley?
Yes.
Resolution number 17-237, authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $1,329,603.94.
Have an offer?
I'll offer.
Offered by Committeewoman Lane, Committeeman Rizzo.
Whoa.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Committeeman Lane. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yeah.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Brantley?
Everybody wait for me to make that mistake, huh? Yes.
The final resolution for this evening. The final resolution for this evening is resolution 17-238, employ special law enforcement officer class 2 and the police department on a part-time basis.
Do I have an offer?
Offer.
Offered by Committeeman Lane. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Williams. Call the roll.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Dr. Brantley?
Yes.
And this concludes our resolutions for this evening.
The next part of this meeting is the privilege of the floor. for the public to come to the microphone with a limit of 5 minutes to discuss concerns related to the township. Do I have it on? Wow. Who am I going to start? Okay, I can't see your face with the striped blouse.
You haven't seen me for a while.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Joan Venezia, 107 Mount Herman Way, Ocean Grove. This is my first meeting back from being a snowbird in Florida. I want to thank Jean and Rick Cottrell for responding to me over the winter when I had questions. This is also my first meeting without Kathy, and she's sorely missed. My next question is about North End. I believe there's nothing that's going to take place on that site for at least this summer, if not longer than that. Do you agree with that assessment of what's going on here? Nothing will actually take place on that
No,
site.
I don't expect anything to take place, construction, but that's a good thing.
So if that's the case, we've been trying to get the camp meeting to try and clean it up or make it safer. I have pictures if you'd like to see them, but you know, there's a chain link fence and there's an end of the boardwalk that drops off and on. And I've talked to you about it before, the committee in general, when you said it's only code violations. I think somebody has gone there. I just want to know what the results of looking at it as a code violation. They don't seem to want to cooperate from a aesthetic point of view even, or anything like that. To me, it's an eyesore. It's our entrance to Ocean Road, but also at the parking lot and at the entrance, at the edge of the boardwalk, there's drop-offs and things to that effect. Apparently, they're trying to get either the builder or them to agree on who's going to pay for covering up some kind of dirt or hole or whatever. But in the meantime, I think there's a problem there. And I was wondering if anybody from the town committee, the township committee, can tell me if I believe someone has gone there and what the results were.
Outside of ordinance, code violations, we can express that we'd like to see that cleaned up from the township.
Certainly, we can entertain a meeting with the Camp Meeting Association, have a discussion with them, and I have not been provided with any violation notices from our code enforcement department. I might defer to Gene. I don't know if you've seen anything from Camp Meeting.
I think we should, if you list it and give it to code or myself, I'll give it to code and I'll talk to, what they can do about it, and we can also have a meeting with the Camp Meeting Association.
I did go over and take a look, but that was after Joyce had mentioned it to me. But I didn't see a lot of, I saw some stuff, but I didn't see anything that would rise to level. Do you have pictures of it?
I have pictures, and I'll attach them to an email and send them to Jean. I mean, to me, it's spots where you could, trip on it or fall on it. I don't know what code violation that would be.
And I will admit, I went at night, right? So.
Right. And I'm not so sure how severe they are or whether they would constitute a code violation, but.
I'll take your statement here tonight as notification, so we'll follow through.
Thank you very much. Then I'd like to ask about the redevelopment committee. I was told, has been formed in January. How many people are on that? And I was told there was elected officials and town staff. Can you tell me how many and who?
Myself, the deputy mayor, Vito Gattoletta, engineer, CFO, a planner, and Bernie Haney.
Right.
So how many is that?
That's about it?
Yes.
Okay. Has that committee met and done any activity on either the North End or anything else?
Well, we haven't done any activity on North End, but we have met a couple of times, and we should be meeting shortly, but I kind of held off another meeting until we finish the process of hiring a redevelopment attorney.
So that was one of my questions. The redevelopment attorney has not been hired?
Not yet, no.
And until the redevelopment attorney is hired, my point of contact is Jean Anthony still about that. When the redevelopment attorney is hired, is that who my point of contact is, or still you, or about North End questions?
You can
Depends on
always
the
contact
question.
Joe,
Okay.
but I'll give you the name of the redevelopment.
Okay. And then my other question is, in general, what are the top 5 redevelopment projects in Neptune that this committee would be assessing? I mean, North End is one of them.
There's 6, there's Transit Village, there's North End, there's North Channel, there's Westlake Avenue,
Former High Tech Park.
Former High Tech Park, yes.
And actually, there's Route 35 and Bangs Avenue, but that redevelopment, there's a plan before the planning board at this time for a strip retail center on Highway 35.
And Schoolhouse Square.
And Schoolhouse Square, the completion of Schoolhouse Square.
And all of these items that you just mentioned have activity that would possibly take place this year, or at least have something that committee has to address.
We're going to address, to make activity if there's none.
Okay.
We want to spearhead that. That's why we're bringing in a specialist to add to the committee.
Thank you very much for your help.
I have the young lady right here in the front. I have called her again. Yes.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Kira. I'm a resident in Sharksburg Hills, 135 Flint Place. Proud to be a Neptune resident, new homeowner.
Mike.
Mike. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. So this is my first time coming before a committee and,
Please have your last name.
Lang, L-A. And what motivated me for that is the news of bulkhead. I'm actively on the river. I'm on kayaks, paddleboards. I love it. The beauty of that area where the bulkhead is going to go is it's kind of important to me. And I feel like a wall is just going to really change the whole face of it. And not only that, the ecology of it. There's so much wildlife there, birds and horseshoe crabs and the bait fish. It's just a really unique area. So I have a couple of questions about that. I'm just curious, why was South Riverside Drive in that specific area from the yacht club to Snake Hill? Why was that selected?
Well, this is as was discussed in the ordinance, this is a mitigation project. There was considerable flooding along South Riverside Drive in that area, both from, completely around the river, from the bridge back to Snake Hill.
You mean from Sandy?
Yes, from Sandy.
So I'm just curious, I mean, a 3-foot wall isn't gonna stop a storm surge like Sandy. And so, of course, I don't want a higher wall, but I'm just wondering if you considered like a living coastline or something that can sort of be stabilizing that area. Because I'm also concerned about the sewers there. That's the first thing that floods when we have a high tide coming in. I know that the water's coming onto the street because I see the sewer bubbling up.
Well, actually, the living shoreline was a process that we actually preferred and was presented to the DEP and back and forth with the DEP, and it was not an acceptable project to be considered for this mitigation. You mentioned the water bubbling up through the sewer lines. This project, in addition to protecting private property, is going to protect public property. The roadway is eroding. Our storm sewers, as you know, if you go down along that area, are failing. This project will include new piping, the installation of duct-bill valves, similarly to what we have the valves that stop that inflow of water from the river into the storm sewer system. It will also protect our sanitary sewer system. So we will be, as been discussed, this is an initiation of the capital funding tonight. We have to have a public hearing on the funding. We then have to hire a consultant to assist our in-house engineer to design the project. And as was discussed by the governing body and our management team as Property Owners Association, there will be public input as we go through the process. So the decision on what we're going to actually do there, we're going to have that public input as we go forward.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you. And so we're going to have that opportunity to discuss it and learn more. But of course, access is really important to me.
Yes.
And I guess that will be also discussed at that time?
As it is to all of us, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's such a unique area there. And then, yeah, I guess that pretty much covers the questions that I have. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Trying to get people who are having, yes.
My name is Arlene Sharapa. I actually live in Neptune City. I'm on 14 Tucker Drive, so I'm almost in Neptune Township. I'm with the Sharper Coalition as well. And we only recently found out about this bulkhead project, so we do have some concerns about the details. And we wanted to know if, with your plan that you presented to FEMA, what are there specific details that we can look at and try to determine exactly what his project is going to look like? What stage are you at in terms of the details?
Well, again, there is an application that was submitted to FEMA and the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management under the Hazard Mitigation Program. And if you would like, you can be in contact with Leanne Hoffman, our township engineer, and she can provide that information to you at this time. And again, design, there's been no consultant hired, and we haven't actually begun the formal design of the project, but you can see what was submitted to FEMA for consideration of funding. And as I stressed earlier, the living shoreline is something that we have been trying to push, but we did not receive satisfactory response.
You did not receive money from FEMA, but there are other grants out there that will promote and will help to develop a living shoreline concept.
Well, if there is funding available in areas that the DEP will support, that is correct.
Okay. Okay. The other questions I have is, with Sandy, there was a lot of flooding that came through the whole South Riverside Drive area over by the marina, where there was a lot of wave action. It didn't seem like, I know there was flooding, but Sandy was an unusual storm, and it seems that generally there is not that much flooding. When you buy property close to a body of water, you know that there are certain risks that, and most of the research shows that these types of things over the long term are really not going to do much to solve the problem. And in fact, they actually cause some problems, and I think that we need to look into the other information about the living shoreline and why that's more advantageous than a hard armored structure that's going to be put up. I'm also concerned about beach access, and more importantly, I'm concerned about any type of destruction of the environment that might occur as a result of building this hardscape. There's a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees, there's rabbits and wildlife, people walk their dogs. What type of effect is this going to have? As the equipment comes in to build this wall? Are we going to be looking at destroying a lot of the environment and a lot of the ecology that's in that area?
Certainly, all that will be considered as we go through the process.
Okay. And will the township homeowners or the township itself receive any reduction in their flood insurance as a result of the bulkhead being built?
Well, actually, not specifically the bulkhead project, but the township participates in the community rating system program, and we have since Sandy. We are currently a Category 6 CRS community member, and as such, every resident who has flood insurance in Neptune should be receiving a 20% reduction in their flood insurance. If you're not, you should reach out to your flood insurance carrier and make sure that you do get that 20% reduction. In fact, currently the township is working to get to at least a Category 5, which will increase that flood insurance reduction to 25%.
Okay, and one final question I have here is in terms of the financial costs, and are the details available in that application as well for how things are broken down financially in terms of how much each aspect of the project is cost, and can we get access to that information?
Estimated, yes.
Well?
That information is provided in that application, and Ms. Hoffman will be able to give you that information.
And the project manager on this bulkhead project would be whom?
Well, it would be a combination of Ms. Hoffman and her staff and our consulting engineer when that firm is hired.
And the funding in the grant includes funding for those positions as well, or is that a match?
That is correct.
Okay. And 5 minutes. I think that's all the questions I have for right now.
She has 42 seconds, Mr. Fernino. She has 42 seconds.
Okay. I just have one question. I think that you meant not $1 billion, but $1 million.
It's $1,200,000, correct.
Okay, good. Just
cross
making
off
sure.
the 3 zeros on the end.
Thank you, Edith.
We knew somebody was going to pick that up. Yes, ma'am.
Carol Carol Imbriaco, 102 Sheldon, Sharp River Hills. Well, first of all, just for a little funny, building the wall, is this a Trump thing? Second of all, I'm kind of confused. Everybody raised their homes on South Riverside.
No, we didn't.
Well,
No, we didn't.
almost everybody did.
No.
A lot of people still are raising their homes. I think you're gonna take away, I mean, the signs killed it already. You know, the signs in the bubble. We came back from Florida last year, it's all those, it was like an airport. Thing driving down. But, how big is this wall supposed to be? How high is it supposed to be?
Again, I'm sorry. I don't have that exact information at this juncture, but once we begin to go through the design process and the elevations are evaluated by our consulting engineer, you'll be able to see that.
I mean, are you talking a big wall?
No, you're not going to see something that you're going to have to take a ladder to climb over.
Is it going to ruin our view?
Yes. It's going to change the view that you have now, no question about that. Yes, it will. Okay,
People
but
raising
I
their
can't.
homes, you know.
But I can't tell you exactly today where the elevation is based on the elevation of the roadway. But you'll be able to see that as we move forward on with the project.
Why is it that area? Why is that area right there?
Well, because that's one of the still remaining areas along the river that have lost the bulkhead over the years. Okay. And this is, again, a mitigation project to help impact on both public and private property if we have another storm.
And are you potentially going to do the whole South Riverside?
If we can get funding for it, yes.
Well, then we're gonna have to pay for money too.
Well,
and that means our taxes are gonna go up.
Well, there's still the opportunity for the township to apply for mitigation grants through FEMA year after year.
Harris, then
Good evening, Diana Harris, 17 Willow Drive. I have several questions. Are there going to be summer jobs for kids?
There will be a summer youth employment program that we're hoping to expand beyond 12 this year. We are working with some of our local business partners to add additional jobs, so you're going to start to see something coming out in the next few weeks on this. We're also working very closely with the school district on their new education and business passport program that's been initiated in the school, and we'll be utilizing teachers and instructors from the school district to do those 12 programs for those employees.
Okay, are any of these for at-risk youth?
I'm sorry?
Are any of these jobs for at-risk youth?
We are going to be relying upon the school district, the PD, and the counselors in the school district to provide us information on potential employees.
Okay, my next question. You started paving on Westlake Avenue, and I can't really figure out what they're doing, all right, other than the fact that they're putting in new curb cuts. But I question, is there any planning as to where those curb cuts go? Because I saw one go in front of Vet Cabs, which is a vacant building that I hope is going to get torn down, and there's a curb cut there. And I see them randomly put in existing places, so has there been any consideration to an upcoming redevelopment as to where you put these curb cuts?
Unfortunately, that's the dilemma, Ms. Harris, is that we have to reconstruct as it is currently. We can't predict in the future what is going to be there. So the curb cuts are going where they exist currently.
Okay. All right, because some of them don't quite make sense.
Understood.
Also, while you're laying concrete, okay, we're trying to put a shed out at the community garden. And we need probably a 9 by 9 foot square slab of concrete. Can the township help us with that?
Well, we'll have a discussion with our DPW. We're not going to be able to utilize the existing contractor to do that.
Okay, absolutely. How do we, okay, first thing that I want to say is I did see COPS, and this is Mr. Bascom was a program that you had introduced when you talked about the study, the police study for 2016. And you were talking about how the cops were supposed to be talking to people in the community and handing out cards. Well, I saw them on the corner of Alpha Liquors, and it was great because it didn't look like they were arresting anybody. It did look like they were just talking to people, which I thought was wonderful. But how do you track that? How do you track who's talking to who, how many cards are being given out? Are they really communicating with these people?
The program you saw at Alpha Liquors is actually in addition to the card program that we're talking about. So it's a regular assignment now, from now through the summer at Alpha Liquors and the parks. So they will be assigned. We're putting a combination of street crime unit members with younger police officers to learn the community and speak and provide security there. So that's a separate project. The cards themselves, that project's tracked by reports. So every time they have a community contact, they file a report with the information they collected from the community contact. All that information will be analyzed by Captain Fisher on a regular basis to see, number one, are they complying? Number two, are we making new contacts? And obviously, we'll compare that as we have in previous years. We'll compare that to the overall crime rate in the areas where the crime is occurring.
Okay. One of the things, I mean, we all heard last week on the last meeting Elena's comments on emotional comments in regard to discrimination in the police department. I have done some research on it, and it's really, it goes way back. It goes back to like 1970, where women were talking about police discrimination and, you know, the type of discrepancies that they have with their disagreements that they have not only with their peers, but also their superiors. And I'm asking you this, and I know, and this is for the Township Committee, I realize that you don't go by way of the day-to-day operations, but those ladies got $660,000, all right, in a law settlement that says that something was wrong. Something was wrong as far as discrimination. So I'm asking you as a committee, what evidence can you give the community to let us know that you're doing something about it? I mean, is there a resolution? Is there something that you're discussing in your sessions on the side that can assure us that you're doing something to correct this problem?
Shortly around that time, we instituted the accreditation process, and that changed how things are reported. Some things that has happened in the past we didn't know about until it got into a severe situation. But now they have a reporting process that that resolves that, how things are handled, the training, a lot of other things that's being done through that accreditation process addresses those things.
All right, and please make sure that mental health is part of this, because on Westlake Avenue, mental health is truly a severe problem, all right, that you see in the middle of the street, particularly on the summertime. So I think that some type of mental health training needs to go along with that. Thank you.
We do. Every officer is required to take that.
Yes,
Greetings, Earthlings. Courtney Atkins, 55 Tremont Drive, Sharp River Hills. I've been living there for 33 years. Carolyn Briaco's child is on my bus. We like the way Sharp River looks. Clearly, or we wouldn't be living there. Have you heard of the expression, there's no such thing as a free lunch? Well, the money from FEMA is nice, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you just do anything with it to get the job done. So I hope that you guys carefully consider this project and you talk to people like Dr. Schrappa, Sharp River Cleanup Coalition, and really consider the options to make this a viable river. You don't want to just put up some, you know, weird wall. Everyone raised their homes. Now we're looking down at this weird wall. People can't walk their dogs. The horseshoes have problems. The bait fish have problems. You want to have some class for the town. We pay a lot of taxes in Sharp River Hills. Neptune is a really big town. It's a beautiful town. I support everything about Neptune, but you should really think about the homeowners in Sharp River and their opinion on this project, because we use the river. And there's nothing better than being able to drag your kayak out to the river and really know that the animals are supported. So, you know, the headliner has a free brunch all the time, a free buffet, not the headliner, DJs. They have a free lunch. But if you take the free lunch as DJs, sometimes you leave and you're not making the best decisions. So, you know, if you want to wait on the project, don't just take the money to take it. Really consider your options. Thank you.
Yes, and we will make sure that you're involved in the process.
Mike Culligan, 305 Clifford Drive. You just spent a couple minutes, each of you, in your opening remarks about extolling the virtues of people volunteering and cleaning up Weston Lake and Shark River. And you're going to include these people in the process. Why didn't we take the coalition with us to talk to the DP about making the case of a living shoreline? Are you representing that any township professional or you yourselves can represent the case of the Shark River better than the coalition themselves? Because going back to the original formation of the coalition, they've made the best argument about dredging, and they've made the best argument about removing invasive species and all these other arguments better than anybody could have. And yet we thought, meaning the town, that we could speak to the FEMA or the DEP and have a better reaction. We could elicit a better response. I'm embarrassed that we didn't include them in the process. So I want to move on, though, and make a comment about the resignation that took place 2 weeks ago. It's obvious that something went wrong. A lot of people are agreeing that there are wheels off the track. I really resent the implication that the accreditation process, which is really fundamentally just window dressing, changed anything where it needed to be changed, because if you have a problem with someone in senior leadership, there's nobody from outside, independent, to hear the case. It's all taken care of internally. Everything is just up to here with conflict. And any time in this process, you could have reached out to a federal agency, you could have reached out to a retired judge, you could have reached out to a county officer and said, these individuals are going to step aside, either not from their entire employment, but just as it relates to these issues right here. And it just would have been an objective set of eyes on the entire process. You know that there's something going on where women are degraded and they're devalued, and persons of color are treated like at a second-tier level. It's not right. There's a lot of talk about people who are of color or have different orientation for their social or their sexual status or whatever, and they have threatened that they're going to go get attorneys. I know it's out there. People are talking about it, and this township committee has been very proudly representative of a lot of different stakeholder groups for a long time. And I always wonder what could be so compelling to keep that lid on that jelly jar with all that pressure in it and not at least work behind the scenes and mitigate this problem. Because there are other people in the Township Police Department that are still suffering in silence. You talk about, Ms. Harris mentioned mental health. You're talking about you're instituting programs where the police officers are going to Westlake Avenue and other areas and they're engaging the community. That's great. How about the frame of mind they leave the police department in, where they start their day, when they put the car in the key in the ignition and turn the key? Garbage in, garbage out. The things they hear, what they talk about amongst themselves, the unnecessary stresses they feel, some of them, irrespective of color or culture or religion or age or gender or race or whatever. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure because this is in the press anyway. And you should be doing something a little more active to mitigate this situation and change the culture. I don't have to sell the benefits of diversity and elevating the entire community through having our police department look and feel and think like the community. And yet it's like everybody just ignores the issue, and this poor woman is just dismissed as being like irate. And some of the language that's being put on social media by people that are closely associated with senior police officers here, they got those opinions and they're making those justifications or validations, whatever they think they are, however wrong they are and incorrect, they're making a personal commentary they got directly. So there's an awful lot of spin that's going on. And I would just encourage you to summon up the courage to ask for some resignations and not just accept some. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Sayer, South Riverside again. Thank you. What I'd like to ask is, I have a problem with the DEP wording for the funding. And what they're saying is, it's improvements. Now, this word is inappropriate when it comes to where you want to put this wall. What's there now is improvements. And according to the dictionary, thesaurus, a bringing into a more valuable or desirable condition as of land or real property, a betterment. No metal wall can describe, can be the result of that description. Living shoreline would be fitting in with that description, as with the wording for the funding being improvement. There's always flooding there. This plan is not an improvement. The living shoreline would be. The wall would be industrial and not appropriate for a residential area. And I'm concerned with the cost, how much more it will cost. I know that you're appropriating $1,200,000, which means there's approximately $400,000 that we're going to bond out. But I know that bonding means a promise to pay later on with interest. So who pays for that? Us. And that's only if it stays, the cost stays at the $1.2 million, which we all know. That will never happen. Especially when you have things like what's happening over in the other area where you have to, over in South Concourse or West Concourse, where you have to relocate the whole wall. I mean, that's gotta cost a lot of money. And I'm concerned about putting something there. The DEP already would not let anyone touch the area when it came to the dredging. We couldn't dredge because we couldn't touch the clam beds. So, you know, that went on and on for 20 years. Now all of a sudden it's okay to put a wall there and cover up the clam beds and say bye-bye to all the natural wildlife that's there. The DEP is going to approve that. I don't understand that. And does FEMA override the DEP if FEMA wants to give you the money and said you have to put that wall there and cover up the clam beds? Does that mean the DEP doesn't have a say in it?
No, actually, the DEP is the ruling body here relative to the project.
So they would approve a wall and not a living shoreline? That doesn't make sense.
In this case, that was the response. I will tell you that the plan was to provide for a living shoreline, and DEP was not in a position to approve the living shoreline for that project. Now, I also want to comment on a couple other things you said. The appropriation in this ordinance is $1,200,000. $1,200,000 is the amount of money appropriated for this project. There would be no overages above the $1,200,000 because if there was, it would have to come back to this governing body. There would have to be a further bond ordinance, and this is based on the best information that we had through the engineering cost estimation by our in-house engineer based on bidding and other projects. You also mentioned about the industrial steel wall. I will tell you the South Concourse project was steel, not what we wanted. We wanted to utilize the same composite material that we utilized on our marina, but because that is a freestanding, very small section of wall, and the makeup of the soil in the river at that location did not allow us to use composite material. So our first choice was not to use steel, it was to go with the composite material, and the plan is to utilize the composite material in this project as well.
Okay, after that meeting, the township meeting at the
Go ahead, go ahead.
After our meeting, Leanne was there with a group of people that she was with, and this was like an information gathering meeting where she wanted to know what we needed because of Sandy. And it was also mentioned that maybe an appropriate remedy might be to put a floodgate at the entrance of the inlet.
Well, certainly that would be a large-scale Army Corps of Engineer project, and certainly has been discussed. The presentation that Leanne and the consultant made to you after our State of Neptune meeting was as a result of a number of planning grants that we received, 5 different planning grants received with Sandy funding. And we have been going out and trying to garner public opinion and suggestions on what we can do again for the future to mitigate some of the problems.
Okay, can we keep talking about this rather than
Yes,
just...
in reference to time, yes, we are. This is not a done project, and you will have more opportunity to discuss things. It hasn't even been designed yet. So when it gets to that point, you will be invited, the public will be invited, and further discussion can be made before final decisions are made.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir, you haven't come in yet.
Thank you, Council. I'm Bill Sharappa from 14 Tucker Drive, Neptune City.
The mic, please.
I think the mic's on. Okay, Bill Sharappa, 14 Tucker Drive, Neptune City. I've been there for over 30 years. Previously, I was a private teacher for 30 years. And I'm currently a faculty member at Rutgers University, where I'm stationed as the Monmouth County Agriculture and Natural Resource Agent in Freehold. I serve as technical advisor for the Navasink, the Shrewsbury, Wreck Pond, and Shark River Cleanup Coalition. We have very many environmental issues. I teach environmental issues on campus, 100 students a year. And we often debate this question, hard structure versus living shorelines. It's a common suggestion, but most people always go for the hardscape because they understand it, and it's been used for years, urbanizing everywhere we see. What hasn't been used is the living shoreline. It's a very excellent way and option that is both economically and environmentally a better way to go. We have a history of these bulkheads. Say you have a bulkhead here. What happens within 10 years? Waves smash into it. They might protect the street for a while, but it gouges out all that sand, all that shrubbery, all that ecosystem that supports the bait fish, the horseshoe crabs, and people's recreation. It shoots it out into the channels. It fills it in again. It covers the clam beds. This is not a good idea for that low impact zone on South Riverside Drive. It's a good idea for high impact zones, but low impact, it doesn't fit, despite what NJDEP says. Last year, Rutgers University, plus the American Littoral Society, plus Shark River Cleanup Coalition submitted a $450,000 grant to NJDEP. They said this living shoreline was one of the best proposals they'd ever heard and thought it was very appropriate for Cliffs Marina in Neptune, for the Cracker Barrel area where all that rubble is, as well as South Riverside Drive. They asked us just 2 months ago to resubmit that. We did. We think we're good chance we're going to get it. So we hope you keep your options open for this alternative, as well as the way I read this ordinance 1714, it says, and related improvements. Maybe you can consider this a related improvement to make even a hybrid. See where the hard structure works better in the higher impact zones. Let us preserve some of that beautiful, beautiful seashore. That's why people move there. We already know West Concourse. My office is getting loaded with complaints. There's real controversy there. The view is terrible. The metal is ugly as heck. And even if you go to plastic, good luck with that. It's the height people are worrying about. And I don't see how the FEMA rules will allow you to keep a low height. That concourse fence is probably 10 feet over the mean water level. If you do that on South Riverside Drive, people are gonna see nothing. The placement of that fence is very important, if at all. And it's too bad you can't put it more like a seawall where the old rotten bulkhead used to be. That would probably help mitigate some of the velocity of those waves and still preserve some of the sand and shrubbery and recreation area in front. There's lots of alternatives. Please invite some other opinions besides, who did you talk to in NJDEP? I got the award from Commissioner Bob Martin for environmental protection 3 years ago. I would like to know who you spoke to.
Certainly, I don't have the name of the team members here from DEP, but I certainly can get that information for you, for you.
That would be great. I'm going to give you my card.
That's what I was going to say. If you can get your information to Vito. And Vito, if you can have a discussion with him, find out the knowledge that he has, and if it'll work.
May I also give the board a little fact sheet on living shorelines? So everybody can come up to speed. It's not the most. The more knowledge, the better we'll come up with a better solution for everyone.
Comment that, as the chairman of Wesley Lake Commission, we would love to see living shoreline on Wesley Lake itself, but we've had problems with that because we have high bulkheads there. But yeah, I'm in favor of living shorelines, and if we can do that, that would be great.
Let us have our proof of concept. Let's try it out. I know that money's very tempting. Maybe a hybrid solution between both of them, see what's working.
We can talk. I appreciate it.